Welcome back to Celebrial. Jay-Z and a man known as Haven both trace their roots to the same neighborhood, the same pressure, the same survival mindset. Haven has publicly claimed he made serious sacrifices over the years, including time behind bars, and says he protected Jay's name while Jay's career took off.
Look at me in my face telling me, yo, don't worry about it, bro. I got you. And I never see him.
But when Haven returned home, he alleges the support he expected never came. No calls, no help, just distance. And that's where this story really kicks in, because the bigger conversation isn't just about one fallout. It's about a question people keep whispering. What happens to the relationships from the ground floor once the empire is fully built? Now let's talk about Damon Dash. If you know Roc-a-fella Records, you know Dame wasn't just around, he was one of the visible architects of that early rise.
Like the way I would look at it, if you could compare him to like a character now, I'd say he's like the Penguin. He's like ruthless.
Alongside Jay-Z and Kareem Biggs Burke, Dame helped push the label forward in an era when the industry wasn't lining up to bet on them. The lore is legendary. Independent moves, relentless marketing, and a hustle-first blueprint that turned early momentum into a cultural machine. Reasonable Doubt, the Blueprint era, roc-a-wear, the lifestyle branding that became bigger than music. For a long time, Dame and Jay looked like two sides of the same coin. But their split is where the story gets complicated. Dame has repeatedly described the breakup as more than just partners growing apart. In his telling, there were power shifts, business decisions, and a fallout that left him feeling pushed out of something he helped build.
Honestly, unless he's fucking my money up, I don't give a fuck what Jay's doing, to be honest. But when he's fucking with my money, that's when I be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already walked away from the block. Leave me the fuck alone.
Those claims are disputed, and the full truth depends on whose perspective you trust. But what's undeniable is that the separation became public, messy, and lasting. And in a recent interview, Dame didn't just revisit the history, he reignited it. And the way he framed it has people looking at the Roc-a-fella story with fresh eyes. When Dame was asked what his relationship with Jay-Z looks like today, he made it clear this isn't just old beef. In his mind, it's active, ongoing, personal. Dame said he believes Jay-Z has been quietly torpedoing his business moves for years. Not one time, not two times, but repeatedly. Every time Dame gets close to a real payday, he claims something happens that knocks it off track. Then, he brought up the roc-a-wear era. Dame said when they were supposedly in the process of selling roc-a-wear for around $400 million, he was positioned to walk away with roughly $40 million, money that would have changed everything for him.
He was selling rock-wear, right, for like $400 million or whatever. I was gonna make $40 million. And right before Tommy Hilfiger signs the papers, he makes an announcement saying that he's not fucking with rock-wear, that he's only fucking with S. Carter. The whole shit up. And I just feel like he did that only because I was gonna make $40 million. Like, he just couldn't see, like, they get so mad if I'm gonna make money off them. Like, every time I could have made a really big check, he's always stepped in and intentionally f***ed.
But according to Dame, right before the Tommy Hilfiger deal could get finalized, Jay-Z publicly distanced himself from roc-a-wear, and the deal allegedly collapsed. And that's the part that makes this feel darker. Dame isn't describing Jay as a distant ex-partner who moved on. He's describing him like someone still watching, still interfering, still trying to block any comeback before it even happens. Then came the coldest moment of the interview. When asked to describe Jay-Z's character, Dame didn't hesitate. No soft words, no diplomacy. He compared Jay to a ruthless villain type.
Okay, like if you could compare him to like a character now, I'd say he's like the Penguin. He's like ruthless like that with his friends or people that...
Like the kind of person who wins by making sure nobody else can. Dame didn't just throw an insult. He painted a whole profile. He compared Jay-Z to the Penguin, calculated, patient, operating in the shadows while keeping that clean, respectable mask on, smiling in your face while quietly setting you up to lose. And coming from someone who helped build Roc-a-fella, that comparison lands like a warning, not a joke. But Dame isn't the only one talking. Now enter Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard and someone who says he had a front row seat to how these circles really moved. In interviews on The Art of Dialogue, Gene describes Jay-Z and Diddy as way more than occasional collaborators.
Close was Diddy and Jay-Z. They was close enough that they wasn't playing basketball, they wasn't playing baseball, they wasn't playing football, and they wasn't playing hockey or soccer for Diddy to come on stage, pat him on his ass, and then make the statement to people in the world that can't nobody call me Sean but Jay-Z.
In his telling, they were close, the kind of tight that even made their own team side-eye. Gene claims their connection went beyond business into weird synchronicities, like checking in on each other's women and moving in patterns that felt coordinated, almost like they ran their personal lives the way they ran deals. And if Gene's right, the question isn't were they friends? The question is what they really knew about each other, and why that bond still has people nervous. But Gene Deal wasn't just talking friendship and industry weirdness. He says he almost got into it with Jay-Z in real life. Gene claims it happened in Cancun during a night-out situation where club entry was being controlled and limited, and he took the whole thing as blatant disrespect. In his telling, it got tense enough that he was ready to swing, and the only reason he backed off was to avoid getting an assistant in trouble, not because the situation got resolved peacefully.
They were so close that they had matching white girls together. Because when they used to see each other, they used to say, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? He'd be like, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? So I guess that's a certain type of closeness.
Then Gene got asked the question everyone's been circling. If Diddy's legal storm keeps widening, could Jay-Z be next? Gene's response went viral because it was cold and simple. He basically framed them as the same type, with Jay just moving quieter with it. Those words have been replayed everywhere, turned into captions, memes, and debate fuel. And when you put Gene's Jay moves quieter next to Dame's penguin comparison, it starts forming one uncomfortable theme: a guy who keeps a spotless public image, while people who used to be close to the machine describe something way darker behind the scenes. But the inner circle still isn't finished talking. Not even close, because next, the spotlight shifts to the people Jay-Z is accused of sidelining when they became inconvenient.
You could tell that the people in power had gave that ring to Diddy and Jay was next in line. So to separate him when in fact they may be two of the same, but because Jay-Z is low-key, that low-key sneaky shit, and Diddy is, and was rambunctious, just out with it, it don't mean that they not two of the same. One just a little quieter with his shit.
In 2019, Jay-Z made a move that split his audience in half. Partnering with the NFL, the same league many believe effectively froze out Colin Kaepernick after he kneeled during the national anthem to protest police brutality. For a lot of fans, that deal didn't read like progress. It read like choosing access over principles. And at the press conference, Jay said the line that lit the fuse. "I think we've moved past kneeling. I think it's time for action." To supporters of Kaepernick, that sounded like dismissal. Like a man who sacrificed his entire career was being treated as yesterday's headline. But the part that really keeps getting dragged back up is what Kaepernick's longtime partner, Nessa Diab, has suggested happened behind the scenes.
And the worst part about during that time were the smear campaigns that were happening behind the scenes to try to discredit Colin publicly, to sway people to think that Colin was okay being blackballed or he was asking for a lot of money to play again. He was never offered a job the minute he protested. Never. Okay? And no. Like I said then, Jay-Z never spoke to Colin before he made that deal with the NFL. No. He only spoke to Colin after he made that deal, and he was okay with the deal and knew exactly what it would do to Colin, and he was okay with it. You know how I know? I was there. I heard the conversation.
She's accused Jay-Z and Roc Nation of helping shape a narrative that blamed Colin for his own blackballing, painting him as difficult, too expensive, or not really wanting to play anymore. That's the allegation. not just disagreement, but reputation control. And if you believe that, then this isn't about one press conference quote. It's about how power rewrites the story until the victim looks like the problem. I was there. I heard the conversation. Those 7 words are heavy because they're not a rumor, not a thread, not a theory. Nessa's framing is that she was physically in the room when Jay-Z spoke to Colin after the NFL deal was already locked in. Meaning, in her view, he understood exactly what that partnership would signal and still moved forward anyway. That's why people keep calling it image rehab. Reports said the Roc Nation NFL partnership was roughly $25 million over 5 years. And critics argue the league got credibility while the man who sacrificed his career got left in limbo. If true, that's not just business. That's rewriting the story of the protest while the protester stays punished. And that's what makes it hit Jay-Z's brand so hard, because it clashes with the identity he's sold for years. Pro-black, pro-progress, for the people. But if you really want to understand the personal cost of this betrayal narrative, you have to hear the next voice that enters the chat, DeHaven Irby. DeHaven isn't presenting himself as some random name from the past. In his telling, this goes all the way back to childhood. The same neighborhood, the same early years, the kind of bond he describes as family-level loyalty, not just friendship. And that's where, in his version of events, the story shifts from public headlines into something more personal and colder. An alleged pattern of people who say they helped lay the groundwork, only to feel pushed aside once the success became untouchable.
Look at me in my face, right? During my trial, look at me in my face telling me, yo, don't worry about it, bro. I got you. And I never see him again.
According to DeHaven, he wasn't simply around Jay-Z. He portrays himself as someone who played a formative role in Jay's early life. He claims he helped guide him through street survival as a teenager. And he alleges that at one point he was seriously injured in a situation he says involved protecting his friend. These are his claims, and they're not independently verified. But they're central to the way he frames the relationship. The turning point, DeHaven says, is what happened in the mid-1990s. He alleges he made a major legal sacrifice that, in his view, kept Jay-Z's name out of the spotlight and allowed Jay to focus fully on music. He describes years spent incarcerated, while Jay's career grew into platinum records, awards, and eventually a business empire. Then, DeHaven says, when he returned home years later, he expected some kind of follow-through, a call, a visit, real support, or at least acknowledgement. Instead, he claims he got distance. He describes repeated silence, closed doors, and a promise he says stuck with him. Don't worry about it, I got you. Followed by what he portrays as years of no contact. He also alleges his family shouldered significant legal costs and that he never received repayment or assistance. And when asked how he views Jay-Z now, DeHaven uses harsh language, describing him as emotionally cold and accusing him of lacking courage. That's his characterization, not a proven fact. What makes the story heavier, in DeHaven's telling, is that he insists the fallout wasn't only between two men. He claims their families were deeply intertwined, mothers close, siblings raised like extended family, godparent relationships, and that the silence eventually spread through both sides until no one spoke anymore.
What would you label him right now?
A coward, right? A coward, cold-hearted.
In his framing, it wasn't a simple falling out. It was an entire community bond, snapping. And DeHaven isn't the only public figure to describe a similar dynamic. The idea that once someone no longer fits the plan, they feel the machinery stops working for them. Over the years, other artists and commentators have made their own accusations about Jay-Z and/or Roc Nation. Claims of stalled careers, abandoned support, behind-the-scenes pressure, or strategic sidelining. Those claims vary widely, many are disputed, and none automatically prove a pattern. But, together, they've fueled a long-running narrative that critics keep returning to. That's the contrast at the center of this conversation. Allegations versus legacy. Because Jay-Z's accomplishments are not in question. His resume is historic. Chart-topping albums, major awards, cultural recognition, and a catalog that's been treated as part of American musical history. And on the business side, he's built a second career entirely. Labels, fashion, partnerships, investments. The kind of moves that turned an origin story into an empire. So the tension becomes this. How does someone build one of the most celebrated success arcs in music, while multiple people, from different corners and different eras, insist the climb came with betrayals, burned bridges, and relationships left behind? If you want, I can also rewrite it even safer for YouTube. More neutral phrasing, tighter disclaimers, and fewer legally risky specifics, while keeping the same dramatic pacing. And the empire didn't stop at music. Jay launched DeUSA, later selling major stakes for another massive payday. He ran Def Jam, helped shape careers, and made early investments that reportedly turned into serious wealth. He's also put real money into giving back, scholarships through the Sean Carter Foundation, disaster relief, criminal justice work, and high-profile advocacy, like speaking out on probation abuse and supporting cases like Meek Mill. So yes, the From Marcy to Mogul story is undeniable. It's rare, it's powerful, it's a version of the American dream most people never get close to. But legacies are messy, because humans are messy. And the more former insiders speak, the people from before the billionaire era, the more uncomfortable questions keep resurfacing. Because if even part of what DeHaven says is true, bullets taken, years served, life sacrificed, what does it say about someone who allegedly never circled back? No visit, no support, no public acknowledgement, just silence. And that's why this story won't die. Success can be real, and the fallout can be real too. If Dame Dash is right that Jay spent 2 decades quietly nuking his deals out of spite, that's not bad blood. That's power used like a weapon. And if Nessa's telling the truth that Jay knew his NFL partnership would damage Kaepernick's movement and moved forward anyway, then the whole social justice image starts looking like branding, not backbone.
You young like that and y'all come up like that, Then as I'm coming up, it's beginning, it's not my man, that's my little brother. You get what I'm saying? That's my little brother at this point now when we coming up in a...
Then came the lawsuit in December 2024. An anonymous plaintiff accused Jay-Z and Diddy of assaulting her when she was 13 after the 2000 VMAs. Jay responded louder than ever, calling it blackmail and extortion, pointing to alleged holes in the story. By February 2025, the case was dismissed with prejudice, no settlement, and Jay went on offense with his own lawsuit against the attorney. Even with that legal win, the damage was done. The allegation owned the headlines and proved something bigger. Even the untouchables become vulnerable when insiders start talking, and the public starts asking the questions that used to be off limits. And that's the pattern people can't ignore. Accusations coming from every direction. Business, Dame. Streets, DeHaven. Diddy's circle, Gene. Activist world, Nessa. All describing the same thing in different languages. Influence, control, and what happens to people who fall out of favor. Nessa Diab from the sports activism world. Nicki Minaj from rap. Rita Ora from UK pop. Beanie Siegel from the original roc-a-fella roster. Different eras, different industries, different relationships. But the stories keep circling the same themes. Betrayal, abandonment, ruthlessness, and an alleged willingness to sacrifice anyone who threatens the empire. Or simply outlives their usefulness. And that's the real tragedy here. These weren't just business ties. These were brothers. Family. People who swore they'd eat together forever, and one by one, in their own words, they got left behind while Jay-Z climbed to heights none of them could have imagined. So where does that leave his legacy? Honestly, we may never get clean, definitive answers. Jay-Z has stayed mostly silent, letting the success speak, responding only when forced. And to be fair, plenty of major names, Rihanna, J. Cole, Megan Thee Stallion, Kevin Durant, and more. Credit Roc Nation with lifting them up, not holding them back. For every accuser, there's someone who'd swear by his generosity and vision. Thanks for watching. If you want more deep dives like this, click one of the videos on your screen now.